Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. This video is going to be for covering the Archon set and how to proc it with Excalibur. Let's get into it. Okay, so the 5 Archon mods, just in case this is the first video you've seen. On the Archon set, I'm going to go over them quickly. Archon continuity, direct replacement for ability duration. Abilities that inflict toxin status effects will also apply a corrosive status effect. This is on status proc, which is going to be important. The next one is Archon Stretch. Plus 45 ability range, same as regular reach or regular stretch. Abilities that deal electricity damage restore 2 energy per second over 5. The really only noticeable thing about this is there's two things actually. Is the energy per second doesn't work with channel abilities. No surprise there. And it lasts not only the 5 seconds, but it lasts on damage. So say you proc the electricity status on something, and you'll get the regen over the entirety of the Tesla coil status, and then the timer will start counting down to 5 once that AoE effect is done. So it's 5 seconds after electricity damage is being dealt, but while electricity, the AoE, the Tesla coil, is proccing, you'll be gaining the energy back also. It's a small nuance thing, but hey, anything is anything. The next one is Archon Flow. Same energy. You get the same energy as regular flow. Enemies killed by cold abilities have 10% chance to drop energy. With a 10-second cooldown. This is, if you can use this, surprisingly useful in just sort of a general running around. If you don't have things like Arcane Energize or anything like that, or using the Zeraman Arcane to get energy back, this can be actually pretty useful. Because the normal energy orb drop chance is about 10% anyway. So let's say for this scenario, you just triggered it. You get your extra energy orb. You will then have a 10-second cooldown, and then the cooldown will disappear. The little marker, the little icon in the top right, will count down to 10, then it disappears. Okay. So from then on until it triggers, you will essentially have a double chance of getting another energy orb until it triggers. So even if you're collecting energy from other enemies, if it doesn't proc the extra energy orb, you can still be collecting energy, and eventually this will just trigger and then do the countdown. So that's sort of how it's used, but the condition is you have to have cold. This does not require a status effect like the toxin one. And the electricity only requires the damage also. It does not require the status effect. You just have to have electricity. So say like an infested build where you would go like gas electric. If you mod like that, you could do a monster gas proc or a monster gas weighting, and then throw on like a 15, like an unranked electricity mod, and it would count for this. You know what I mean? Same with this. You do not have to do the cold proc. It just has to be on the exalted weapon, or it has to be another ability. Exalted weapons count, which is how Excalibur is going to be getting most of these. Archon Vitality, 440% health, which is the same as regular Vitality. This is on status effect. It basically, when your ability applies a heat dot, it applies the damage from the status effect twice. Kind of straightforward as long as you understand that like it requires the status effects and it has to come from an ability, and when that damage gets dealt, it applies the damage twice. And this is going to be the one that Excalibur has a bit of an issue with, because this is very, very particular. In order to get the extra intensify, It's 30 ability strength base, so it's the exact same as regular intensify. But the conditional on this is restoring health with abilities grants plus 30% ability strength for 10 seconds. Excalibur does not have a heal. Arcane Grace doesn't apply this because it's not an ability. Rejuvenation is not an ability, so it doesn't count. Things like Protea Dispenser don't count because it's not an ability healing you, even though the source of the heal for, say, like Protea is an ability. You are healing because of an energy orb, not because of, say, like a direct ability. And it is kind of particular on how this works. Just to give an example, also, say Trinity, for example. Trinity's 1, Well of Life, does not trigger this. But Trinity's 4, Blessing, does trigger this. It's because you're healing from an aura, and it doesn't count it as an ability, because what the ability is doing is making the Well of Life. It's not making energy per second. You see what I'm saying? So it's a new category of like how to think about this, because now that stuff matters in terms of what triggers it. So stuff like that, it has to be a direct effect from an ability. And what's important is healing return. Healing return doesn't work because even though this is on something that's considered an ability, you are healing because of a mod that might be on an ability, but you are healing because this mod is healing you, not because the ability is healing you. And this matters. So Excalibur can't use this intentionally. We'll test some interactions in a later video in terms of like interplay between like teammates and whatnot. But I'm guessing this can be a traditional slot anyway, because of the interactions between like teammates and stuff like that. But anyway, for now, if you're doing solo play, you can't use that unless you helminth something on that gives you health. Anyway, so we have specific elements: toxin, electricity, cold, and heat. And how Excalibur is going to trigger all of these if going over his abilities. Slash dash, pure slash, radial blind is a blind. Radial javelin deals physical damage only, no elemental. But Exalted Blade, though its base damage is physical, obviously, we can actually mod it down here. Currently have it modded for heat, so it seems like a good place to start. So what we're looking for is when the 4 procs heat, we're looking at what the damage is. And in this circumstance, it is literally going to be a second heat proc. So what we're going to see is heat, instead of going 1 heat proc, 2 heat proc, 3 heat proc, it's going to go 2, 4, 6, 8. So let's get to it. Alright, we got a heat proc. If you look, it's 2. Even though I've got like 25% status chance. Alright, 2 again. That's the effect of the mod. And it's on status chance. Alright, we're going to swap over to another element. And this one's a little bit more straightforward, but not quite as useful, because the only way Excalibur has of triggering this is with his 4. But because it's a channeled ability, he won't gain it while using the 4. So up here at the top right, you can see the trigger. It counts down, starts at 5. As soon as it hits, the trigger happens again, even though we didn't trigger a status effect. When it says damage, it means literally damage. I've procced this on Atlas, just testing it out, just using like a monster like impact proc. And then I threw on like a 15 out of 15 60-60 electric mod, and I was able to proc this like religiously. So this mod is going to be more for any frame that doesn't have a channeled, because you won't get the energy back per second. So usable, that's how you trigger it, but because you have to do it from a channel, it's better to just stick with stretch. Continuity requires a toxin effect, and when we trigger a toxin status, a toxin effect, a toxin status, we will receive a corrosive status at the same time. So let's mod for corrosive. We'll increase our status a little bit, just to make it a little easier. Okay, first one. Nice RNG. If you see toxin and corrosive are on it, and just to show the modding on it, I do not have corrosive on here, and nor do I have chromatic blade to affect anything. So that's how that works. An ability that deals a toxin status, you get corrosive for free. Archon flow. Enemies killed by cold abilities. This is surprisingly liberal in what it means, and it's like electricity. So we can actually do like a really big radiation, and then you could do cold and see the weighting. The cold is non-existent, but this will still count, and also it'll obviously still count if you do like a heavy cold weighting. And because this is on kill, and for just expediency of time, I'm going to lower the level. So what we're looking for is this is going to show another icon up here. Just like that, Archon flow. It triggered, which means one of those energy orbs was dropped because of the mod. So there you go, that's all 5, how to trigger them, and obviously can't show you Intensify because Excalibur can't self-trigger it. But that's how you would do it with Excalibur. I'm not saying any of these are better than the rest, but to be honest, for Excalibur for a 4 build, I'm probably going to use Archon Continuity, because being able to fixate because of the fact that it's melee scaling, having the Prime Toxin mod will probably be really good bang for the buck. So I'm probably going to end up using this one personally, and forgetting about stretch, flow, not going to be able to use that because we're going to be modded for toxin, won't be able to do cold at the same time, and Archon vitality, we won't be able to trigger that either. So when you use this on Excalibur, I would suggest using just one of them. Obviously, if you want flex points, you can equip as many as you want. But anyway, thank you for watching my video. Have a blessed day.